It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order here in the Rick Room. So welcome. Thank you for those joining us online and here in person. Um, The first order of business is an executive session for the strategy and preparation for contract negotiation with union and non-union personnel. Can I get a motion to enter executive session?
I move we move into executive session for the purposes stated to return to open session.
No, second that.
It's been moved by Emily, seconded by Sean. Emily?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Margot? Aye. Paul?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. We will be back at, where's the agenda? At 7:30, 25. So please log back on if you're online at 7:25. Carrie, let me know when you're ready up there. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Alrighty, great. Well, welcome back, everyone. Our next item on the agenda is public comment. Again, this is not a back and forth. It's public comment where members of the public can either raise your hand in person or digitally, and you have 3 minutes to make any comments that you would like, and I will ask the clerk to have an audible timer ready. Do we have any public comment?
Just give it 1 second.
Yep.
We have Brian Covell.
Mr. Covell?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Brian Covell, 124 North Road. Good evening, residents of Bedford. I would like to dedicate my right of public comment this evening to do some housekeeping in regards to some of the false statements reported by Mike Rosenberg in his last article in the town's paper Bedford Citizen on 8/25 of 2023. Mike Rosenberg states, quote, "Several efforts this week by police to serve Covell at his home with a court-ordered no trespass order from the town hall." End of quote. There absolutely was no court-ordered trespass order sponsored out of the Concord District Court by any judge or magistrate. This is simply a constellation effort by the Bedford police who have had their motion fully denied. What happened in court is what Mike Rosenberg is not reporting. At the start of the arraignment, the corrupt charging crew of the Bedford police came in at the end and slipped ADA Ortiz a request that she makes a motion, and in that motion, the Bedford police asked that Mr. Covell be issued a no trespass to 10 Mudge Way, did not specify the title Town Hall, and give up his right to public comment. As ADA Ortiz addressed the court with the stipulation request from Saucier and Officer Booza, and somebody else I didn't recognize, not many I don't recognize, the Honorable Judge Brenda Mule addressed ADA Ortiz and responded by shaking her head, no, immediately with a strong response, quote, personal, comma, she states. ADA Ortiz rebutted and tried again, and only to be told sternly, immediately again, quote, no, personal, with an immediate rejection of the said motion. I am under no legal obligation to open my door, as we have fared the Bedford police for the last 3.5 years. As the police know this, we haven't opened our door to the police since February 20th of 2021, 9:50 p.m., which was a devastating incident, but these reportings will be covered by way of public website in the very near future. But the Bedford police continue to conspire with their methods of scaring myself and family by their excessive banging on our door day in and night out. It was a Bedford police town notice, Mike Rosenberg, and not a court-issued order. You got that now, Mr. Rosenberg? The legality and hypocrisy of these groups of actors that show up 15 times in the last 10 days to absolutely terrify a family of children, but cannot show up once to investigate a double.
Mr. Covell, your time is up.
That we pray and are taking action to have them remove this.
Your time is up, Mr. Covell. Thank you, Sean. Any other speaker?
No other hands are raised.
Any hands here? No? Okay. So then we will move on to board and committee interviews. I do see Mr. Gallagher here tonight, but I'm sorry, I keep on trying to turn to see, are Mr. Fath and Ms. Moore up there as well, Carrie? Oh,
You have Ms. Moore.
hi, Mr. Fath, how are you? Thanks for being here tonight. So I really, I want to thank all of you for your interest in the committees and for being here tonight to be interviewed, so welcome. Before we begin, I just want to explain a little of how it typically works. So usually we have the liaison share with you a bit about the roles of and the responsibilities of the committee, and then we'll ask you to say a few words. Just so you know, we do have your volunteer questionnaire already, but please feel free to share anything else that may not be on there. And then we'll open up to the select board to ask some questions. So I wonder if we would like to start with COA, since COA is listed first. Would that be okay with everyone? Great. And would you be okay if we have both at the same time, or how would you? I know typically in the past we had both candidates answering back and forth at the same time. Do we want to keep the same structure?
That's fine.
Awesome. So since I am the liaison to this committee, Mr. Fath, please have a seat up here. Thank you. And Ms. Carrie, you sent Ms. Moore as a, great, great. So since I'm the liaison to the COA, I'll just kick off with the responsibilities. Basically, COA is to identify the interests, needs, and concerns of the age 60 and over population of the town and their families, develop, implement, and promote programs and services to respond to those interests, needs, and concerns, educate the public regarding the needs and skills of older Bedford residents and their families and caregivers, and the programs and services available to them. Access existing resources and advocate for more to close gaps and respond to the needs of a growing older population. Coordinate programs and services with other town departments and the elder service network in the region and state, and promote a positive image of aging in all generations. One of the things that they've been working on is the dementia-friendly community. So I will turn it over to Mr. Fath. Since you're here, I will ask you to say a few words about yourself, and then I'll ask the same of Ms. Moore.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I work as a physical therapist in the community and also surrounding communities. I typically will meet people, typically seniors, at their homes. And so that's my sort of day-to-day professionally. And then also over the past year, I've been serving as a friend of the Bedford Council on Aging, and doing my best to support the social media efforts and trying to, grow our reach. So I think we've done a good job of growing, but could certainly do more. And just firsthand, being inside of many homes of seniors, I can see that there are common challenges, and with not only the seniors, but their adult children in terms of finding services and resources. And my goal is really just to start in our community and be a big part of that positive change.
Great, thank you. Ms. Moore?
Hi, my name is Karen Moore. I've lived in Bedford for 24 years. I am myself a senior, and I've served in the past as a tax aide for AARP. I've been a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've also served as a Monday manager for the Minuteman Senior Services. And I've also done therapy work for nursing homes by bringing my dog in for as an animal-assisted therapy. My background is I have 15 years of accounting experience, followed by another 20-odd years of legal experience. I've always considered myself, I love the aging population, and I grew up with, my parents were much older than me, and I always kind of geared myself to the older population. And my reason for serving on the board was basically to serve with the older adults in the community of Bedford, and give them knowledge about some health and financial security and whatever else I can share with my common peers. I have created a list of some ideas that I think would be helpful for our community, and I hope that I'll be able to share them with them in the near future.
Great, thank you very much. So I'll open it to the board for questions. Sean?
So, Mr. Fath, you talked about social media. Ms. Moore, you talked some about a list of ideas. Could each of you talk about what you would want the Council of Aging Board to do that maybe it isn't doing right now?
I think rather than maybe something that they're not doing at the moment, I think if we can kind of extend our reach to the community through the social media, I think there's a consensus after reviewing some of the more recent meeting minutes from May and April that a lot of our seniors and the aging population are active on social media. So I think the question right now is how do we get more people involved in our own community, sort of like online Facebook and Instagram side of things. I think it's a great bullhorn to share information and to kind of create a little bit of energy. And I think that's one of the things that I've heard in the past year as a common challenge in terms of how do we kind of get more of that community support. And I've heard a lot of great ideas, so I hope to use that as an opportunity to facilitate some of these ideas.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Moore?
A couple of the ideas I had was, I know that as a senior myself, and I know a lot of seniors in the community, there's a lot of people that just want to be able to stay in their homes. They have no idea how to go about doing that. They need help repairing their homes. They need help doing things with their home because they're living on Social Security, and that's fixed amount, and everything else is going up, and up. So I think it'd be good if we could find something to help the seniors stay in their homes and explain to them or get them into programs where we know that there are programs out there, but they don't know where they are. And like the social media idea too is Facebook. I just happened to go on to the Facebook for Council on Aging for Bedford, and I hadn't seen much updated lately. So I don't know if that was something that the Council of Aging is working on or not, but I know that people my age do tend to check out Facebook, so I know that's something that could be helped with. Another thing I was thinking about was loneliness. There's a lot of seniors in the community that live by themselves. And I had an idea, which I don't know, maybe I heard somewhere along the lines, but like adopt a senior, where maybe we could just match up people or even younger people too, so that they could get experience as the seniors, because seniors still have a lot to give. I mean, 60 really, at this age of the game, is not that old. So I just think, something to that effect where we could just, maybe have a senior go over, a high school person or whatever, go over and help a senior. You could have that program through the school system, or otherwise just within the community, just maybe a home mother has a few hours to spend during the day. Maybe just have them go over and spend an hour with the senior, just, to talk with them because they're very, very lonely. So those are just, I have some other ideas too, but those are probably my top ones that I was thinking of.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you both for stepping up.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I'll just say thank you for stepping up as well. Those are really thoughtful answers. Thank you.
So if we have no other questions before we take any action, can I just do my spiel about this?
Mm-hmm.
Great, and I hope I'm not going to miss anything, and if I do, please just chime in. So should you be appointed, Ms. Moore, Mr. Fath, and Mr. Gallagher as well, this will be for you for your interview portion, is that before you take any official act, you will have to go to the town clerk to get sworn in first. At the town clerk's office, they will give you a board and committee handbook with a copy of the open meeting law and ethics guidelines. We do caution board members to not communicate via email Obviously, you can share articles such as the Bedford Citizen or scheduling, but, it's a conflict of open meeting law once you start communicating. You will also get information about the ethics training to avoid any conflicts of interest, and you will be asked to take an online test. While you're on the committee, should any issue arise in regards to conflict of interest, please feel free to reach out to the town manager's office. If the office can't assist you, they will reach out to town council. We do ask you to familiarize yourself as well with our civil discourse guidelines, which is on our town's website and in the back of our town warrant. We also, right now, should you get appointed, you're new on the committee, we also want you to consider where, as you move on, please consider being chair as well, and taking on leadership roles. I'm going to pause here. Do you have any questions for us, Paul or Karen?
I don't think I have questions at this time, but thank you.
Great. Are we ready to take action?
Sure. I'll move that the Select Board appoint Paul Fath and Karen Moore to the Council on Aging Board with terms to expire June 30th, 2026, and authorize the town manager to sign the appointment letters on behalf of the Select Board.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Emily, seconded by Sean. All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye, too. That's 5-0-0. Thank you both so much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, yeah, you can either leave, you're welcome to join us for the rest of our meeting. It's usually very fun, so.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Very nice to meet you. So next is the 300th Anniversary Committee, which is my committee as well. I'm a liaison to that as well. And we have Mr. Joseph Gallagher here. Please come up, Mr. Gallagher. So this committee, as you all know, their role is to plan a big festivity for us in 2029, which is our 300th anniversary. And they have done a tremendous amount of work already in terms of researching different towns, what they're doing, and also right now, they've been, asking residents and everyone in regards to what they love about Bedford. They're working on marketing. They're talking about Bedford Day, of how, they're going to have a table there. You're going to have a table, right, Mike? Okay, good. Just want to make sure that I didn't commit you to something. So the main thing right now that they're looking to do is fundraising, and we really appreciate you, Mr. Gallagher, for stepping up to be a part of this. So welcome. And as you heard earlier, I'm going to pause and ask you to talk a bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Joe Gallagher, 120 Page Road. I've been a resident of town for about 30 years now, back in the early 80s, then I moved back again in the mid-90s, so I've been here for quite a while. I volunteered on the soccer board, the baseball board, the Bedford Center of the Arts photography boards, so I've been on several boards on it. I've just recently retired from doing project management and sales support on it, so I've got a lot of project management skills. And I'm good friends with Ron Richter. I think most of you know Ron. And we just started talking about this committee, and I said, well, this would be something I'd be very interested in. So I turned around and gave Mike a call and got the input from him, what the committee's about, what they're going to be doing over the next couple of years, et cetera, and said, this is something I'd definitely like to bring forward and work with the team on.
Awesome, thank you. Select Board, questions?
I have a question on fundraising. Have you ever done that before?
Fundraising, what I've done is, it's been a while from a baseball perspective, where they go out and try to raise money from the different businesses in town to sponsor a team. So I got involved in that.
Yeah. It's a tough job. Ooh.
It's tough, but a lot of the business here are very, very good about contributing into the town. So,
My experience in the past has been, people are very willing to give, but the group that's tasked with asking, it can be brutal for some people to ask for money, even though people are willing to give.
yeah, the committees have all written up like a script for you. I mean, you gotta be somewhat personable to go out and talk to the person, but you have a script on what is it we're doing, why is it gonna benefit you?
Yeah.
How your marketing it's gonna help you from a long perspective on it. And it's not easy, but.
Yeah, no, good luck, thank you.
Yeah. So I'll be going to you first, Paul.
That's fine, it's fine.
Anyone else? Margot?
Well, I think every time we appoint somebody to this committee, it offers us an opportunity to sort of brainstorm and think about kind of what we would love this to be. And I know that Portsmouth, New Hampshire just celebrated their 400th, so we're a little juvenile compared to that. But they're having signature events, outdoor events that are bringing people together to do communal things like share a meal, a picnic, something like that. And I would just love for the committee, as you, I assume, join it, to think along those lines about not just a really great Bedford Day, which I'm sure we will have, but what are the ways that we can get out and maybe break bread together and neighbors get to know each other who don't know each other. I know we've had some recent very successful community building events, including like our beer garden, where I remember seeing people in Bedford who I had never met before. And it was really interesting to see what brings people out and what gets people excited. So I just wondered, is that something that appeals to you from your project management point of view?
Yes, as you said, Portsmouth just did their 400. My summer places in Gloucester, they're in the midst of doing their 400. So you get to see, and when I've had conversations with Mike and Ron, it's not a Bedford Day event. It's a year-long event. It'll start, like on the 299th anniversary and move all the way forward. So you're going to have many, many events going on. I mean, towns are very different. Gloucester, Portsmouth are coastal towns, so they're very different. But they've had parades, they've had parties, they've had concerts and things like that, just to kind of bring it forward. You could do the Thursday night that they have in the summer, maybe do something in conjunction to bring that forward or something. Got to sit down with the committee and think of some different ideas on it. But yeah, it's a year-long event, and probably 4 years of planning for it.
Just want to be careful that we don't take too many ideas from Gloucester. We're not going to put grease on the pole for pole capping. I'm not doing that.
Other question? Joe, my question would be, like, in terms of involving different community, how would you go about, like, involving, like, one of the things that we always talk about is try to make sure that everyone is included. How would you reach out or do some outreach in regards to different communities?
Well, part of that will be the group getting together and working it through. But recently this year, I've been getting a little bit more active with the Rotary, who is involved in everything. So I was at their last dinner a couple of weeks back, and I volunteered with them. I'm not a member with them, but I do volunteer and go on their team, et cetera. So they're very heavily involved. So I would link up with the people I know from there to help with the community aspects of it also.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Awesome. Well, you've heard my spiel. Are we ready to take action?
I move that the Select Board appoint Joseph Gallagher to the Bedford 300th Exploratory Task Force with a time to expire June 30th, 2024, and authorize the town manager to sign the letter on behalf of the Select Board.
I'll second that with the amendment that I think we officially call it the Bedford 300th Anniversary Committee now, right? Didn't we change the name at some point, or is it still in the?
Yeah.
Is it still in the bylaws as task force?
Talking about it at a future agenda.
Okay, then I withdraw my amendment, and I still second the original motion.
It's been moved by Sean, seconded by Emily. All in favor?
Aye.
Vote aye too, that's 500. Thanks so much, Joe, and congratulations.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Next is Old Billerica Road, and we have Pam Brown here. Pam, I don't know if you would rather be up here, just, yeah, let's,
Yeah.
where the microphone is. So, as you all saw in your packet, Pam had sent us an amendment to our memorandum of understanding, so thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think just to quickly outline, we spent a lot of time trying to look at how we can try to make everybody happy, and it's been a rather difficult exercise. So what I hoped might be a compromise is to provide, we originally had talked about converting the barn into sort of an activity space for the community. So rather than doing that, we would consider building another two-family unit and then asking to provide just one affordable unit. Our challenge is, my client actually does better building the bigger project. He's not opposed to it. We're really doing this to try to make the neighbors happy. And I think I outlined in my letter, there are a number of other things that have changed since the time that we were here to do the MOU for the initial waiver of right of first refusal. The only other point I really wanted to make, and maybe I've said it before, is from my perspective, it's really about timing. I don't think the town would have purchased the land for $2 million a couple of years ago, and I don't think they'd do it now, over $2 million. And the main reasoning behind that was because with a PRD proposal, the town was going to have donated the supermajority of the land, all of the land that had been on the land acquisition list plus additional upland area. So I'm hoping you'll agree that it's a compromise to provide one unit. We can be open to which unit. It doesn't have to be, and I'm hoping that might help if we don't give you the cheapest unit. If the town's looking for, you can certainly provide input. I think if you enter this, the planning board will respect your direction. But the board typically, looks to have not the absolute smallest unit, or and I'm now hearing from the town's housing consultant that we prefer not to have affordable units in existing structure, or not necessarily existing, but old structures. For example, 229 Old Billerica Road. It's a very old house, 1671, but difficulty probably meeting code and so forth. So we would be looking to, potentially, if it's what you want, to give one of the single-family homes rather than an attached unit. Happy to answer questions. I could talk on, but I think we've said a lot already. So,
Margot.
I'm happy to go. Pam, I appreciate that you availed yourself of the opportunity to watch the meeting video from the night of the meeting that we negotiated the MOU, and I appreciate the shout out. Although I don't think it was meant to be complimentary, noting the timestamp. I will just say have my thoughts. It's customary. The chair reserves the right to speak last, and you take that opportunity to notice if anything has fallen through the cracks. And that night, something had not been raised that I knew from my experience on the board has consistently been important to the select board, which is the inclusion of affordable units when we are negotiating. And if you watch the video, you notice that my colleagues heartily agreed, including one of my colleagues who said at least 2 units, right? So I'm not a lawyer, but a negotiation isn't over until all parties agree. And whether it's proposed at the beginning, middle, of end, it's really irrelevant. I propose something, You and your then client agreed to it, and you wrote it into the MOU. It wasn't a trick, it wasn't a trap, it was just an ask, and the answer was yes, and I was very appreciative that night. And the reason that I made the ask was that having been on the planning board for 5 years, I learned that if you don't ask for something and you don't put it in writing, it's really hard to get it, because no matter how much a proponent might say they'll try to include something, if it's not in writing, and it's not on the table. And the reason I wanted the 2 affordable units, I think you point to in your memo beautifully. The new construction in Bedford is costing $2 million, right? That's not affordable to most people. So I appreciate that you've brought some ideas to the table, you and your new client, to restore the affordable component. So looking through the options that you presented, I really can't agree that replacing an MOU that would have had a 12.5% affordability for the project with one with no affordability is acceptable. So I appreciate the offer of the $25,000 donation to the Affordable Housing Trust, but that just doesn't come anywhere near to substituting for an actual built affordable unit. $25,000 won't get you there.
Okay, so you don't like that option?
So I have some thoughts that I'd like to share respectfully with my colleagues regarding the other options that you presented. As you noted in your memo, I know that we don't have a pro forma, but your contention that it would be financially infeasible to provide 2 units at the reduced unit count that is now pending before the planning board, I understand that. However, I would support the 13-unit project with 1 affordable unit. This would be 7.6% affordable. If the planning board is open to increasing the number from 13, I would support the 15-unit project that preserved the barn, but I would ask that the affordable unit be one of the 11 new construction, because I concur with the assessment that older buildings tend to be less amenable to folks who are needing the more affordable homestead. So that would be 6% affordable if we did it that way. And finally, I would support the 15-unit project that replaced the barn with a duplex, as long as both of those units were affordable, and that would result in a 13% affordability. So ultimately, I feel like the planning board is going to issue this permit, and these changes that are being presented to us as options, I think I'd like to hear what the planning board, what their preferences are relative to either preserving that structure for the aesthetic quality or the conversion into living space, and how they feel about that.
So I need to ask, because I thought I was following you, but then your last statement. So you would support 1 affordable with how many new units?
So if we increase to 15,
15
and
total, yeah.
15 total, and preserved the barn, I would. That was one of the options that you presented.
Oh, yeah, but turned it into
housing.
housing. Okay.
Then I would just ask that the affordable unit be one of the new units, one of the 11 that were part of the cul-de-sac development, and not in the barn.
So I understand you would be okay with the original larger project. So the second option with the barn conversion.
The barn conversion,
okay.
but then I would ask that the affordable
Somewhere
unit
else.
be someplace else.
Okay.
But then if it were the preference to build new, to tear down the barn,
Yes.
and to build new and build a duplex, I would prefer that both of those units be affordable. And because you said that at 13 total units, it's not affordable to build 2, but at 15, you're getting back up pretty close to where we started, which was 16. And I'm just suggesting that to my colleagues as an option. I don't think we need to go into a tremendous amount of detail about the feasibility or the non-feasibility. But in looking at your options, these were my responses to your options.
Okay. Just one comment, then I'd love to hear from everybody else. So you're suggesting that if the barn is converted, we only do 1, but if we take away the barn and build a new duplex, we would have to do 2?
Yeah.
Because the total number of new units is the same.
I understand. I'm uncomfortable with having the affordable unit in the barn.
I can put it somewhere else. We're not sure about the feasibility yet. I mean, I've been in it.
Sure.
Maybe some pictures.
But I would rather, if you were going to avail yourself of the opportunity to build new construction and to build a duplex on that location, because it's a small footprint where the existing barn is, and I don't know what your thoughts were about converting that into 2 units, but My thought would be if you built 2 small duplexes and they both were new construction, I would like to see both of them be affordable, because then that would return us back to where we were, it would be in the keeping with the spirit of the MOU.
You're saying if it was a new building rather than a barn renovation,
Yeah.
we need to do 2. That becomes difficult, because then I mean, I know this is outside of the bylaw, but I reflect on the bylaw because there's some minimum that's sort of your, I call it base density or by rate density. And then beyond that, 50% of the additional units under the bylaw is what would be affordable. So to do 1 new duplex and do 2, I mean, frankly, I don't need to be here for that.
Well, all I'm saying is that the intention was, when I asked for those 2 units, because I was on the planning board, I know that projects change as they go through the process. And we all knew that this project might change. You've been through this process as well. Just because you propose something doesn't mean that you end there. And by putting those 2 units into the MOU, my intention was to ensure that that benefit was retained on behalf of the town.
I understand that now. At the moment, again, and my point with the 6-minute was not, I'm sorry, was not meant to be negative. It was more like, it was almost an afterthought. I appreciate what you said about you were the chair and you waited till the end. But at the moment we were agreeing, we'd been conceptually to the planning board already, and they were pretty open to it, but we hadn't heard from these abutters yet. Like I said, I mean, there's millions and millions and millions of dollars of cost before we start putting sticks in the ground here. And the fewer units we build, the bigger that base cost is outside of the actual house construction. So to take that number, I actually started running some numbers tonight after a call with my client, and they all look negative right now. So I think, again, I guess if we end up at 2, then we're taking a chance with the abutters before. But
Well, I'm just going off of what was presented in your memo, that you stated that at 13 units, it was not feasible to do 2 affordable, and I will, not contest that.
I'm trying to distinguish the difference between 13 units by renovating the barn or 13 units by building a replacement.
I just think it may offer your client an opportunity to do something slightly creative with that space and make it possible to have 2 nice, new construction, modest, affordable units.
I spent all too much non-billable time drawing pictures with my electronic pencil to try to mark out the barn on how we might make units in there. Okay, well, I'd like to hear from
John.
I mean, Margot, I like all the stuff you said. I think, I like the fact that we would give the planning board options, because they're the ones ultimately closest to how the development has come about and all the different hearings. I'll ask the staff, do we know what the exact differential is? Like, what would it take to, if we were doing the cash in lieu, to pay down essentially a market rate unit to make it affordable?
I'd have to see the value of the units that are being proposed, because it's a formula that would have to be done. So I don't know that off the top of my head.
Yeah. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, though, is it's much higher than 25,000. So I think in that sense, again, I concur with Margot that the value to the town is much more in having the one affordable unit. Again, concurring with Margot, I think if we're going to go with one, it should be one of the newer units. Then that's one thing that we try to push, is not having the affordable units be the cheapest stuff. I did get a note from the planning board chair that whatever we decide tonight, we need to convey to the planning board, because, rightfully, I think there was some confusion at the last time this came up at the planning board meeting. They didn't really know where we were coming from. So I hope that that's part of our process, that we, one way or the other, send a letter to the planning board at the end of this. But again, I liked what Margot said.
Okay, Paul?
So in terms of communicating with the planning board, I think that's an excellent idea. But I do think we were somewhat in limbo in terms of waiting to hear back from Pam and her client on what they might offer. So, not that I need to apologize for us, but I don't think we were just kind of, whistling around.
No, that's fair.
You touched on something, Sean, that I was trying to think through, but you said it pretty well, which is, so the offer was $25,000 or build one unit. And, we could just say tonight, sure, right? But I don't think we have enough information. I don't know if we have to, have it down to a penny. But I do think some numbers in terms of what's, as you said, bring it down from market to affordable, what that buy down would be helpful information. I think saying yes tonight would be making a decision in a vacuum, and I don't know who can determine that or kind of give us a guide. Again, I don't think it's, coming down from heaven, but I think we could get some help on that.
The RHSO should help with that.
Yeah, right.
Margot? Sorry, Margot.
Yeah, I was going to make that suggestion as well, that perhaps Liz Russ could give us a sense, because it's been a very long time since Bedford has done a buy-down. That early on during community preservation, early days, the first 5 or 6 years, I think before I was even on the committee, so sometime between 2000 and 2006, which would be a very different real estate market, we did do some buy-downs of some of the duplexes on South Road, I think. Since then, obviously, community preservation has done some subsidizing of unit creation at $100,000 a unit, but even that, I don't think, that would be like a unit in a larger development. It wasn't like a freestanding house. So I would ask that if more information is required, that Liz Rust be the right person to ask.
I don't have much to add. I appreciate the creativity in looking at the existing structure of the barn and considering a repurpose to affordable units. And I hope that would be amenable to abutters, knowing that a structure is already there in that place, a structure would be there. So my inclination is to be supportive of either renovating or building new construction on that site in lieu of a payment to the Affordable Housing Trust. But I'm happy to wait for more information from our HSO to make sure we're really comparing apples with apples.
Pam?
This delay is, and I'm not blaming you, but the delay in getting answers here is costing close to $20,000 a month. So we'd like a solution tonight, one way or another. If we're gonna end up having to go back to 2, I think we have a challenge because we've been trying in good faith working with the butters, and I know a number of, if you got a letter, but anyway, I don't want to harp on that. You know the situation. If we can accomplish either the barn renovation or replacing the barn with one unit, we're ready to go forward. I could probably throw in a little bit of money along with it, but what I need to make clear is the fewer units we build, which we're doing for the abutters, the less income there is on the overall project. And under the bylaw, to do an affordable isn't quite just what's the cost of a buy down, because we're essentially creating a wash between the market rate unit and the required affordable. So it's kind of a net zero. So any dollar we offer is kind of out of pocket. It's not coming from profit that we were making by having fewer units. We're actually making less money, if any, on building the units. I think the project has been deemed a good project, and I think the planning board is very interested in seeing it. And aside from, I think, Margot, maybe you mentioned this earlier, but the whole project. Yes, I'm sorry. The whole project is at probably half of new housing market rate, a combination which is the size and the closer units and all of that. So I don't want to call it workforce housing, but because it's Bedford, but we're talking about a level of, I think, many of these units are under $1 million, not at $1.8 million. So we are, in addition to providing the proposed affordable, we're also creating some housing that's that middle market, as Tony Fields calls it.
So Pam, I guess what I'm hearing you just said is that you would be willing to do the one affordable unit and also putting some money into the affordable
That
trust?
gets the job done tonight.
And how much do you think?
$10,000 or $20,000 plus the affordable.
I'm sorry, at the 13 units or at the 15 units?
At the 13 units.
At the 13 units.
So we do, and the affordable doesn't have to be in the barn or in the replacement to the barn. It can be
No, so you're talking about the 15 units then?
a total of 13 new units.
Right, so you, in your memo, you refer to existing.
Sorry.
Okay.
I actually had this discussion with my client. We get confused when we start talking.
11 new, 2 existing is 13 units. Right?
We're at
That was
17. No, so it would be 13
13
total
new.
and 2
And 2, so that would be beyond where the planning board is now, right? The planning board has paused at 13 units, 11
Total.
new, 2 existing.
Correct.
You have come to us with proposals that the planning board has not seen yet.
Correct.
For
Other than I
15,
copied Tony on
15 units, 13 new, 2 existing.
Correct.
Okay. And you're saying that at 15 units, you could do 1, whereas at 16 units, you could do 2. When we negotiated with you, it was
Well,
at 16.
So it was actually 17, but the difference there is we added a parcel of land with another house on it since the MOU. So it's
But in
almost
the
easier-
MOU, it was 16, it was, at the time,
At the time of the MOU.
it was 16
It
and
was
2 affordable.
14 new units.
Yeah, okay.
Did you say 20,000 in addition?
I can go there if that will get us.
So I'm kind of liking that because again, I don't know what the number is for a buy down. It's much, and I'm not saying that we have to get exactly to that because there are other considerations, the lower density with the abutters and some of the conservation stuff. But if we had one affordable unit and then we had a contribution that could go to another project towards an affordable unit at some point, I think we're getting close to, in my view, close to making the town whole for the regional agreement.
Other thoughts?
Oh, no, I agree. I think that would serve our purpose, splitting the baby.
It sounds like we're also going to give the planning board options, right? That would be one option.
I think it has to be that way, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think, I'm not sure that we're ready to approve a change in the MOU contingent on the planning board agreeing to it. I mean, I think that we need to have some feedback from the planning board before we sign a new MOU, right? Because then we're just back where we started if we approve something that they're not comfortable with.
Well, beyond that, if we're back at 2, we don't need anybody other than a special permit, so.
Planning board next meeting on the 12th.
Yes.
I mean, I suppose
I'm sort of hearing a straw poll that you would be satisfied with that. I mean, they still have to carry on with their permitting.
Right.
If it's well within the bylaw. I think from the discussions I've had with them, it will fly, but I certainly can't speak for them.
Well, could we go to the planning board with this feedback on September 12th? Or then, to see what their feedback is, and then on the September 25th select board agenda, approve the MOU? Like, you can still move over with a public hearing on the 12th, so it's not stalling the
Right,
public
well,
hearing.
but it is, because if I can't start redesigning the project to have material for the planning board on the 12th, I mean, we're about
Well,
ready for a vote with the
let
planning.
me just interrupt for a second, because it sounds like the consensus of this board is to support the conversion of the barn into 2 units. And my only question is, one, affordable and money, or if it turns out that that barn needs to be torn down, is there any appetite for considering having the barn replacement be too affordable? I asked my colleagues.
I'm certainly happy with that. I
Yeah.
think that's
But see,
worth
again, I don't
negotiation
need
with the
to
planning
be
board.
here If that were the plan. No matter what we do with the project, we have two portables, we don't need to be here. But I'm telling you that to get, I keep violating your directions. I mean, if we're going to carry on with a project like the original project, we don't need to be here.
Well-
We're here because of the abutters, really.
So, noting that the planning board would have to sign off on the increased number of units, it sounds to me like the select board has a general consensus that at the 15-unit project that preserved the barn, when I said as long as the affordable unit is one of the 11 new construction, I don't know if my colleagues care that much about it as I do, along with a financial contribution, that would be acceptable. If for some reason your engineer goes out and looks at that barn and it needs to be torn down, then you're right. You could go back to the planning board and they could approve something with 15 units, and potentially you could present a plan that had 2 affordable units in that barn.
Well, I guess this is where I'm a little challenged by your options, because I think it would be really cool to renovate the barn. It's a neat building, and it would create 2 modest, units. I'm totally happy and expected you to tell me you wanted, notwithstanding anything else, that you were going to want a new structure as the affordable. What I'm a little challenged by is if for some reason we can't preserve the barn, why can we not just build another duplex in the location of the barn and still provide 1 affordable? It seemed like you've been suggesting that if we have to take the barn down, that you want 2 affordables.
Well, we did want 2 affordables.
Originally, but we're talking about.
No, I understand, but at 15 units, you're beginning to come close, very close back to where we were at the beginning. And again, this is for my colleagues' consideration. I think preserving the barn would be really lovely.
And that's the hope, but if we can't do it, I guess what I'd like to see this board is just talk numbers and the restriction on having the affordable be one of the other new units, right? Along with the finances. The planning board did have one, I gave them an update at their last meeting, and I expected to be a 5-minute update, and it was a fairly long meeting. Sean, you were on that meeting.
Yes.
So there was a lot of discussion, and it did sound like they were kind of asking if we could do one. It was before I came up with what I thought was a brilliant idea of renovating the barn, but.
It was hard for me to gain a sense of consensus from that meeting, to be honest. It seemed like, I know Chris wasn't there, and there were 4 board members that all seemed to have different thoughts.
I'll take the risk. If you're willing to, you don't have to sign the MOU till later. I just want to know where we're going, so I know what I'm directing the engineer when I get home tonight.
Can you just tell me what is the rough square footage of the existing structure that you were saying you would renovate, the barn structure? If you were going to turn it into 2 units of approximately what size?
I think the stable side would need a little addition because it's too small. It's like 600 square feet.
So you're talking about like 2 1,000 square foot units or something like that?
On the schematic, Margaret, it has,
I did scale it.
yeah, it has 2 residential units comprising approximately 1,500 to 2,000 square foot for one, and then 900 to 1,200 square foot respectively.
I knew I'd done it, but
So I guess for comparison, like Pine Hill Crossing are more in the 1,500 to 2,000, right? Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'm not understanding why we can't do an MOU with options in it. One that allows for the barn to be preserved, one that allows for conversion of the barn, depending on one, and then the planning board could.
Well, I would be comfortable stipulating that if the barn needed to be torn down because it can't be renovated, which is certainly in the realm of the possible when you're talking about an old structure, that we set a limit on the square footage of the 2 units. Because I think the beauty of converting the 2 units in the barn is that even if they're not the affordable units, they're small. And they potentially could meet the need that you were saying of folks at lower incomes just because they're more modest in terms of their size. Well, Pine Hill Crossing, certainly, those were still expensive, right? Or Cheever's Path, you know, $800,000 for those houses that are very close together. So I would be comfortable envisioning a situation where if the barn needs to be torn down, that we have put limits on the size of the units to preserve the lowercase affordability of them. And if there's a way for us to put that into the MOU. Because I think this is a new idea that you've presented to us for the first time, this planning board hasn't seen, and it sounds like it's a little kind of back of the envelope-y, right? Like you haven't hired a structural engineer.
Correct. The only challenge I'm having with what you're saying is that the whole reason for going to no or one affordable unit was because we're not getting the extra market rate unit to help cover the subsidy for the affordable, which you know is substantial. $500,000 or something. So, well, I'm not opposed to doing a smaller unit there. For you to say one affordable plus money, and oh, by the way, you can only make half as much money on the 2 market rates, like.
So what you have offered us, best case scenario, are 2 units that are very small, right? If you're able to renovate the barn, you have offered that to us as an option, and it sounds like that would be a preferred option for us because I think we appreciate the historic character of town and we like to preserve things like we did down on South Road. So if you can make the money work at renovating a small, old space into 2 units, I don't see why you couldn't make the money work for building new 2 small units. Because the fact is renovating tends to be quite expensive, especially if you're going to do a good job. So if you have the opportunity to build 2 units, I don't want you to come back with 2 3,000 square foot townhomes.
Understood.
And I would like to memorialize that.
That's not the proposal, but could we pick a number like 2,000 square feet?
I'd be comfortable with 1,500 per unit.
I think 1,500's, yeah, again, that lowercase a affordable.
$1,500 square unit is not tiny.
I don't think so, but.
I understand, but I'm trying to match, I'm trying to match the offer that you have made. And I think that one of the things that, again, because putting these things in writing is important, I want to be able to go on record as saying that if that barn cannot be renovated, that we expect those units to be substantially smaller than the rest of the development.
Bear with me 1 second, I'm trying to reach my
Margot, just so I understand, can I share that again? Since my mind's up. Just so I understand better while Pam's contacting her clients, is the idea that that you were just discussing is that the 2 would-be units on the barn wouldn't be affordable housing, but they'd be small enough such that they would be effectively somewhat affordable?
Yes. So
Compared to
what I'm suggesting is that there be 15 units with 1 affordable, and either the barn gets renovated into 2 small market rate units, or if the barn needs to be torn down, that those units remain small and do not have to be affordable. So the 1 affordable would be one of the new development, the new 11, and all I'm doing is putting some bumpers on what you can do with the barn.
So off the table if we agree to do that.
That's up to my colleagues.
Can we restate the latest version of this, just so we're all clear? Yeah.
So what I believe is under consideration at the moment is that the planning board, should the planning board approve the increase from 13 to 15 units by conversion of the barn into 2 small living spaces, that we would relieve the developer from the responsibility of having 2 affordable units and would only have 1, and it would be one of the new construction, one of the 11. And then subsequently, if the barn needed to be torn down, that we would further require that the 2 new units that would be built in their place be no more than 1,500 square feet.
And you do, I just want to clarify, we mean 1,500 per unit,
Yes, 1,500 per unit,
for the record.
for the record.
But if we were to do that, you're asking if the 20,000 would still be,
Yeah, that's a pretty significant difference.
So I'll just say, I'm way outside my range of expertise on, saying the square footage of what someone's houses that they're gonna build is. But if Pam's client is amenable to it, and it seems to me that you think that that's a fair deal, I'm mostly interested in a fair deal, because I presume Pam's client knows how to look out for their best interests, and they're willing to go for it. I would accept that as well. And sans the 20,000, forget the 20,000.
So in lieu of the 20,000 that we talked about earlier, we're adding that stipulation on the size of the barn units to maintain some lowercase a affordability. Okay, I could go for that.
And what's the case if they're unable to do anything renovate the barn?
Well, again, sending this back to the planning board, because they do have to look at the site plan. Right now, there's parking in front of it, and it's looked as an amenity to the development. And, I presume that the planning board would be open to the idea of that conversion. But if for some reason that they're not, I would just say that there just has to be one affordable unit, no matter what.
And that's when the 20,000 comes in, right? One affordable unit and 20,000 in that case you talked about.
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
Yeah.
My guess is the planning board will love the idea of a couple smaller units.
I think
These
the other,
actually aren't huge. We have units in here that are like 2,400 square feet.
My entire house was 2,400 square feet before I put an addition on it, so it's just, I understand. It's a market issue, but when it comes down to it, there are smaller units, and in fact, some of the trends nationally are towards building smaller
That I
units.
understand.
the other benefit to keeping the barn units no bigger than the barn currently is you do have at least one abutter that's actually very close to that, that's further away from the road.
I've actually,
And so you don't want to compromise, their surroundings any more than the development is already doing.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I've actually been speaking with that abutter because even with the activity center, it's kind of what activities, because his bedroom is at the corner that's closest to the barn. So if we needed to take the barn down, we would actually, I put a box on the little plan I gave you, but we would scoot it forward, actually maintain that mandatory 50-foot. We'd have to squish it forward, but we would do that if we had to build a new building.
so it seems like we have 2 options that we want to put on the MOU.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
And
Yeah, or 2 options that we are ready to endorse depending upon which direction the planning board goes. I don't know if we want to have an MOU that has option A and option B. In the end, we just want the MOU to have what we decide. But it sounds to me as though we have 2 options to offer the planning board, and upon their approval, we would sign the MOU that was consistent with what they approved.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, can we produce an MOU with option A and option B, and then the planning board can just execute it?
I've already done that. I need to do a little
Just-
tweak to the three
Yep.
options. We're deleting one option
Right.
and giving you,
The MOU is still with us. The planning board, we're informing the planning board that we now have a draft MOU that offers them two options, and we will execute the MOU based on which one they agree to.
Okay.
you could leave the options, but I'm okay with this getting signed later as long as we kind of have your preferably vote or consensus on what the options are, so that when we can start preparing to get back to the planning board with more detail.
So I'll offer a motion if people think that it's timely.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so I move that the select board, what's the verb? Commit, thank you. Commit to executing an MOU regarding this development with two options, contingent on planning board approval. Option A would be to allow the development to have 15 units total by creating 2 units in the existing barn structure with the requirement that there be 1 affordable unit among the 11 new construction. Option B would be that there would be only 13 total units, 11 new construction, and there would be 1 affordable unit and a payment of $20,000 to the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust.
Margaret, did you need to specify on A that the units in the barn would be no greater, each would be no greater than X?
Right, I guess for option A, in the event that the barn needs to be demolished, then the replacement new construction would be no greater than 1,500 square feet per unit. Thank you.
But does that also include if there's I'm sorry, Pam, refurbishing that doesn't bring it to greater than that percent?
I was just going to say, you could probably simplify it, because either way, I mean, if I do an addition, but if you put that
Okay.
condition on, then.
So the units in the barn structure or replacement structure shall be no greater than 1,500 square feet.
I think when you just spoke, though, maybe I misheard you, but I thought you said, on the second option, I thought you said 13 units rather than 15. Because they're both 15. One is just barn renovation, and the other one is the barn comes down and we build a new two-family.
I think what Sean was asking was if the planning board does not agree to increase
Oh,
the number of units to
Gotcha.
15, then we would retain the 1 affordable unit, 13 total units
Oh, I see. Okay.
for that 7.6 affordable.
That's correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think our assumption is that the planning board will be pleased to move forward with the barn preservation, but if for some reason, I think we're memorializing that we
Okay.
still get 1 affordable unit.
Okay. I missed that the first time around.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved by Margot, seconded by Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. That's 5-0-0.
And do we need to send a memo to the planning board to this effect?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that something the town manager's office can take care of? Awesome, thank you.
And in the meantime, I'll actually make a few tweaks to the MOU.
Great, thank you.
Really,
Thank you.
A couple of paragraphs to be modified. Thank you very much, all of you, for putting up with my ask and the good deliberation.
Thanks, Pam.
Hopefully we can
Thanks.
make the project work now.
Thank you to your client as well.
Yay.
Yeah. Great. So next is, as you all know, November 6th is our special town meeting, and our next agenda item is the call for special town meeting.
Sure, so there's a very draft version of the warrant in your packet that Charlie put in there this afternoon. What the select board need to do tonight is to actually call the special town meeting. Last time you called for it to start at 6:30. I'm not sure if you guys want to do that again, but that's something to discuss. discussed tonight about the earlier start time, based on the feedback that you got from the survey that we did. So, any questions, but definitely need to make the motion to call it, and at what time.
Sean?
So I had a question to start off with. I know you mentioned the survey, Colleen, that one of the things that seemed to come out of that survey was that people, roughly half the people preferred the Monday, Tuesday type thing that we have now, and then roughly half the people approved of the weekend. And one of the things we talked about is maybe with a compromise so that one group doesn't get shut out all the time, having a fall town meeting on the weekend is, I don't know if that's still possible to discuss, or if not, when that would be possible to discuss, because I know the fall town meeting date is not set in the charter, we set it.
I think that's up to the board. We've been planning thus far to have it on November 6th. We would have to line up a lot of things to get it done this year to change that date if we were going to move to a different day of the week. But that's up to the board to decide.
Margot, sorry, you have something else.
I was just gonna, if things are already kind of set in motion, I don't want to disturb that. I'm just wondering when would be the appropriate time, let's say for next year, to consider something like that, because I thought that could be an opportunity to have people participate that maybe just can't do it on Mondays.
In my opinion, I believe probably earlier in the summer, because we kind of backed out the closing of the warrant and everything based on the November 6th date so far. So that's just where we're at now.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, Margot.
I actually think this would be a perfect thing to include in our goal setting with our new town manager, because he may have some experience from another community or some ideas to share with us, and that would give him plenty of time. I think also just in terms of the time frame between now and November, onboarding a new town manager and changing a relatively well-oiled machine probably wouldn't be great for the workload on the town manager staff. So, but I would be very supportive of having that conversation with the new town manager and seeing what his ideas are and sort of charging him with giving us some options.
Agreed.
How about the time? What are we thinking about the time?
It gets dark really early. I think 6:30 would be nice.
How many articles did we have last year actually at that?
At special,
Yeah.
we had 10,
compared to this 10.
Yeah.
but
They
one
were
of them
big already.
was
And this,
the bike path, so.
and this is more, but less in terms of issue-wise.
Yeah, there's a lot of bylaw changes. There's a collective bargaining agreement potentially coming forward.
I mean, there are some things of interest. The specialized in energy code will be of interest, and
Yeah. So it's kind of like the same amount if we were, and I do like the earlier start, personally.
Yeah, as do I.
I agree. And even if we think this one is going to be shorter, I like the idea of kind of memorializing the 6:30 start as the way we do things for town meeting.
okay.
Agreed.
Anything else?
So I'll make a motion, if folks are satisfied, move that the select board issue a call for special town meeting to be held at the Bedford High School Auditorium at 9 Mudge Way on Monday, November 6, 2023 at 6:30 PM.
Second?
Been moved by Margot, seconded by Emily, all in favor?
Aye.
Vote aye too, that's 5-0-0. Okay. Consent
Can I actually
agenda. Oh,
just,
go ahead.
sorry, I had a couple questions on here. I know this is super drafty. On Article 7, which is about acceptance of funds received from handicap parking tickets, I know that the Mass General Law that we're citing uses the word handicap, but we had a good discussion at Disability Commission that anywhere that we could say accessible instead of handicapped, I would love to see that.
Thanks, Emily. Anything else? Okay, consent agenda.
So you have 3 items before you tonight. One is to approve the annual election worker roster, and that's in your packet. Oh, wait, can I read it?
No. That was
No, we did that last one.
I was like, I've seen that before.
Sorry. I don't think I copied the right notes then.
We have minutes.
It's all minutes, yeah.
It's all minutes, never mind.
I'm okay with the minutes. Sure. I will move that we approve the minutes of July 24th, August 7th, and August 14th, 2023.
Second.
Been moved by Sean, seconded by Paul, all in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye too, that's 5-0. Town managers report.
All right, so I have a couple items for you tonight. The first is an update on our emergency shelter response and what the town has done thus far. And then finally asking the select board to accept donations on behalf of this emerging crisis. So as the select board know, the governor declared a state of emergency as the number of migrants in Massachusetts has sharply risen. As of today, we have 38 families. That number has increased since the last time we spoke. They are sheltering in Bedford. Several dozen of these individuals are under 18 years old, and at least 17 are school-aged. So in accordance with state and federal law, the Bedford Public Schools has been working to enroll all school-aged children and provide them and their families with appropriate English language learner and other support so that they can begin the school year successfully. In addition, there's an interdepartmental working group that meets at 9 a.m. every day to talk about next steps in the response that we do. So we are working with the Bedford Public Schools, the Health Department, Youth and Family Services, Recreation, Police, Fire, and the Town Manager's Office to meet and discuss what's happening. So over, I would say, the last 3 weeks, our primary focus has been ensuring that people have access to medical care and food. And now we are kind of moving on to other emerging needs like transportation. We're trying to get clothing. What we don't need is people dropping off random items because there's like very set things that we would like to have to help give these people a little bit more agency over their own lives. Is we would prefer to get monetary donations and gift cards, which the select board need to approve that. So a kind of a blanket approval of acceptance for emergency shelter response would help us greatly. That way people can go out and buy and purchase things for themselves. We can't always control the quality of what's getting dropped off or if it's the right size, so that a lot of times things get dropped off and then that we're responsible for either accepting it, checking the condition, or getting rid of it if it's not the right, items for the right people. So we, I guess I'll open to any questions, but what we asked tonight is to be able to accept gift cards. We just launched a webpage that details kind of what we're looking for. We're hoping to get some volunteers to help actually with the volunteer coordination. So if there's anyone in the community who is interested in that sort of response, please get them in touch with either the town manager's office or the Health and Human Services office. There's a lot of people wanting to help, and it's a lot of people to coordinate at once. So anyone who can help us with that coordination effort would be greatly appreciated. I'm just trying to see. On the website, it tells what kind of gift cards we're looking for, who the checks can be made payable to with, emergency shelter response in the memo line, and they can be dropped off with our health department. So there's a lot going on, and I think everyone wants to help, and we're very grateful and appreciative of that effort, but we need to make it a little more streamlined if we can.
So just clarify, just so folks at home who might be interested, you can either make a monetary donation or you can donate gift cards if we approve.
Or they can donate their time too if they're looking.
Right, but in terms of the financial process, so you don't have to go out and buy a gift card. You could, just the same way during COVID, we accepted emergency
Correct.
donations. Okay.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more in the donating time. You're in need of both worker bees, and the worker bees would maybe bring folks to doctor's appointments,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But you're also still in need of someone to coordinate the volunteer worker bees.
Yes, we have a lot of people from various community organizations wanting to help, and it's just there's a lot of phone calls every day, and there's unfortunately not enough town staff to help coordinate this large of an effort.
Mm-hmm.
And so, someone who can help coordinate medical appointments, rides to those medical appointments. We're going to be doing a car seat training soon.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just there's a lot of moving parts, and we can't always keep up with it as much as we would like to.
Do you have any thoughts on, what if that seems, you have someone who's like rah-rah, but it just seems too daunting? Do you have, like, a few people who might do it, if they can be co-captains, or,
Yeah, I
any?
think having a team would be great, and that way it's not just on one person, because what we're finding is having it just on our social work team, our HHS team, is a lot, because we also they have to do their regularly scheduled jobs, and this is above and, beyond because of the state of emergency, and they're happy to do so. But what we're running into is there's just not enough hours in the day, and having someone on the outside that's kind of that point person would be, okay, we can refer this person to here, if we can refer this person, versus like, we're putting you on a list and we'll call you when we are ready for you.
So if someone's a little bit like, okay, I think I might be ready to do it or help, but they need a little talking to, they should call over at the health department.
They can call the town manager's office, they can call HHS. HHS is out a lot in doing the response, so for now, they can call the manager's office.
Okay.
No, that was my question, because I think, first of all, some people hearing this tonight might be moved to volunteer, but then also if we're out in the community and someone asks, or we identify someone in our networks, then we should be referring them to the town manager's office, and then you can take it from there.
Yes.
Okay.
Would we consider, or would this even be a good idea to have an organization serve as a coordinator? Instead
So there are some shelters in Massachusetts that have a shelter sponsor. Right now, Bedford does not have one. I don't know if there's a rhyme or a reason to, I think it's just organizations do step up. So I think we are looking into what it would entail to have someone in town be that shelter sponsor group. But we're still working on that. I think it's responding to a state RFP as part of the process, which is not insignificant. So that is an option we're looking into as well.
Any other questions?
No, I just wanted to clarify that, for folks who are listening at home, you've already been in touch with the clergy network. The CERT response team is responding. We're getting donations from outside groups like Cradles to Crayons. So there are a lot of people helping. It's just a lot.
We need
so
a coordinator for all of those people.
Yeah. So I think, if you're in a faith community in town, maybe the first step is to reach out to your faith community and see what have they heard, what can be coordinated that way.
Colleen, I guess my last question too, I really appreciate all the staff for doing this. How about them? How are they doing, and what can we do to support as well? Staff and
Every day I'm appreciative for all of our staff in every single department, particularly that we moved towards hiring social workers, even before COVID hit, because they helped out so much during that. And I'd like to give a big shout out to Heidi Porter and Christopher Bang, Mallory Fuller, even our police and fire chiefs. No one has hesitated to step in. We've had members of our own staff driving people to medical appointments and helping with making sure they get set up with the translation services once they get there. It's been a Herculean effort, and they're happy to do it, and they didn't even hesitate. So I think what would really help is have someone else be the point of contact so they can still execute these things. But a lot of people are calling, which is wonderful that people are wanting to help, but we can't respond to everybody and all the needs at once. So having someone kind of be that point person would be very helpful.
Well, thank you, and everyone for being a part of this.
Thank
Do
you.
do you need a motion for us to accept? So I'll move that the select board authorize the town to receive emergency donations, emergency response donations of funds and gift cards.
Second.
Thank you, Margaret, for the motion, seconded by Emily. All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye too, 5-0.
And I just have one more update. So Select Board, I'll know this as we spoke last week. I've received an offer in another community, which after going back and forth a lot, I've decided to accept. I've been in Bedford for 11 years, and I'm thankful for all I've learned about municipalities. I never knew how much work goes into running a town, and I am so appreciative that I've been able to learn and grow into a career here, and I'm looking forward to using all the skills I've had here in my next community. But I will miss Bedford a lot and all the relationships I've built here. I won't be far, and I'm ready to help out and consult as needed and with the select board and the new town manager. And if they need me to come back, which it sounds like they might, I'm happy to help out there. So I just want to say thank you to the board. You've been very supportive this past summer, being interim. Again, I've learned a lot, and I'm, kind of ready for that next opportunity, and I'm thankful for all your help and your support over the years. Thank you.
We just want to thank you again publicly for everything that you've done for the town of Bedford over your long tenure here, especially over the last several months. And we are very sad for ourselves, and we are very happy for you, and look forward to hearing great things.
And if I may, I just want to add, Colleen, you've been here almost the entire time that I've been on this board, and it's really impossible for me to imagine you not being part of our team. But I join all of my board members in just congratulating you and wishing you all the best in your career. And we've been so lucky to have you all these years, and we're really going to miss you.
Thank you very much.
What they said.
Yeah, that's what they said, exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's always a little heavy.
Thanks, Colleen.
Yeah.
Liaison reports.
Nothing.
Just super quickly, in our correspondence, you saw the memo from TAC about the prioritization of sidewalks. I just wanted to flag something just as we're going through these transitions, and I know that we're losing Charlie, who's been such a great presence in the town manager's office and who has staffed Transportation Advisory Committee. So among the things that he had on his burner were communicating with the MBTA about our magically disappearing bus stops. So I just wanted to put down just a little reminder for the new town manager as you guys depart and he arrives. I'm just curious who's going to be tasked with kind of keeping that relationship alive and making sure that we make headway with the MBTA while they are paying attention, because during the conversation with TAC, that did come up that, in terms of just wanting to have closure on that issue that's outstanding.
We have a DPW employee who has been working closely with TAC and BAC this whole time, and is the point of contact with the MBTA now.
Terrific.
Yeah.
And we're going to miss Charlie, too.
I know. Anyone else?
I got nothing since Thursday. I was in a car for most of the time between then and now.
I just have to remind everyone that this Wednesday, the 300th anniversary committee is meeting at 7:30 via Zoom.
Joe, if you're still on the meeting, please go get sworn in.
Yes, I totally forgot about that. To let him know.
We can remind him when we send his appointment letter.
I move we adjourn.
I'll
Sec-
second that.
Emily, Sean beat you.
No, he beat me. He's fine.
Been moved by Margot, seconded by Sean, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Great, meeting is adjourned at 8:55 PM. Thank you all.